This trailer is very cryptic, but from what I was able to gather from it, there seems to be like this band of knights that are trying to go after Mikola in order to receive his grace. And I'm gonna assume that they're likely going to fail their journey here and maybe sacrifice themselves and not obtain what they're looking for. But today we're gonna be checking out Vaati's analysis of the trailer. And this man has it on lockdown, so there's probably going to be a ton of stuff that I didn't even realize I was looking at. Of course, I'm assuming this is going to be mostly speculation, so I guess I have to take it with a grain of salt. But as always, make sure to go and support Vaati. Link to the OG is always at the top of the description.
Everything in this trailer makes so much sense. Is probably what I'm going to say in about a month when the DLC is out. When we look back...
I think this also happened when the initial trailer, cinematic trailer for Elden Ring came out. I think that was a fight between Melania and Radahn, right? Like there was like no context to it, but it just looked really, really cool. And I think they've achieved a mastery of what you should be putting into a trailer and not like spoiling the entire story. Like there's definitely lots of spoilers in here, but they're so out of context that you just wouldn't know what you're looking at until we get the DLC.
This trailer will explain everything, but right now I've got so many questions, especially about this scene in particular. Here we're being teased with what is clearly one of...
Is that? Oh, come on.
With what is clearly one of the most important events in this universe, and while the truth is right in front of us, it's impossible to make complete sense of it yet.
Yeah.
They're taunting us. I hate it. I love it. Let's break it down. So this trailer comes in 3 parts. There's the beginning, where gold arose and shadow was born. Then we see the war that followed,
and then the war
with Mesmer reducing
flame.
a city and its citizens to ash. Finally, we see Mikola near the current age, and he's been preaching a hidden truth about the beginning
and these
to
band
his
of
followers.
knights who
Mikola
are not going to make it.
Spoke of the beginning, the seduction, and the betrayal.
But like, if this is the beginning, then it's not Mikola, right? This has to be Marika, yeah?
An affair from which gold arose. And so too was Shadow born.
Are we gonna get the whole trailer here?
To start, this is Queen Marika.
No, never mind.
The bracelet and these armbands, they're an exact match for her jewelry in this piece of artwork. But what is happening here? The first shot we see is Marika pulling what looks like hair from what looks like a corpse. The hair seems easy to explain. I think these are runes of the Elden Ring. Compare these threads to the ones that you see in this cinematic,
Very
where
similar.
the Elden Ring was being repaired. This is Marika's hammer, and its description reads, "The hammer..."
I think it's been a while since we touched upon this, but I probably forgot that it looks more like strands of hair. And I mean, it's certainly a funky looking hammer.
Partially broke upon shattering the ring, becoming splintered with rune fragments. And obviously these threads are very much the same as the rune threads here, so I think Marika is essentially looting runes from a corpse, maybe somewhat similar to what we do in the actual game. Please bear in mind that from this point forward, a lot of this is speculation. However, even if this speculation is wrong, I think this is still a really good opportunity to talk about and become familiar with concepts that will likely show up in the Land of Shadow one way or another. So
it's a fun
here goes.
little thing to do.
I don't think these are just any runes.
Could be right, could be wrong.
Nor do I think this is just any corpse. The thing this mass first reminded me of was the attire of the Godskin enemies. It's really similar in color tone, and the thick folds
because of
really
stitches
remind me of skin and fat. What's more, we can see horizontal stitching at the edges, which brings to mind the Godskin Stitcher,
I didn't even
which
think
is a
about
weapon
that.
references the creation of the Godskin attire, which is peeled and then stitched together from Godskin.
From Godskin.
And considering Marika's hand alone is bloody,
self-explanatory.
it's not bloody further up. Clearly, she's reaching into something visceral. But what is she doing here? Obviously, it's too early to say for sure, but I do want to comment specifically on the shape these threads are making. It's being pulled into a downward arc, which is a really potent symbol as it relates to the Elden Ring. So there are 2 downward arcs on the Elden Ring. one is here.
I forgot. Of course, symbolism. It's the name of the game when it comes to Elden Ring. Didn't realize how significant the shape of this would be, but I guess I probably should have. We even talked about like how the crisscross pattern, I forget exactly what you would call that in English. It's also present in the statues for Marika and Radagon was his name, right? Marika's alter ego, the who she married, but it's also just herself, so. So what is the meaning of this downward arc?
At the bottom, which is explicitly a rune arc, it's a basin in which the blessings of the Elden Ring pool. But the more relevant arc, I think, is here at the top. This arc creates a symbol that is iconic
just
to
like Marika's statue.
It's seen on her scar seal and in her crucifixion at the end of the game, and now again in the trailer here, and at the end of the trailer as well, with the gold flowing between the two shadow trees. Something that the YouTuber Quailag talked about very early on is that Marika's seal seems to be a subversion of the Rune of Death. You would have seen the Rune of Death.
Wow. These connections, man. So this is like an upward arc instead. Maybe you could view it as like a closing point, but this is the Root of Death, right? So when we remove the top off of that circle, it doesn't create a circle anymore. It just creates like a basin. Maybe that's the symbolism behind this? Or we might be taking this in a different direction. But to me, it kind of makes sense that like you remove death, so the circle of life, there is no like beginning or end to it. It just is life.
After defeating Malekith, it's something that was once a part of the Elden Ring, delivering a destined death to all until Marika the Eternal removed it and sealed it away. According to Enya, this rune
and that's
was
why the downward arc is
from the Golden Order
significant
upon
to Marika.
The Golden Order's creation. And indeed, Marika's age became defined by its defiance of death in all things. So it is that I wonder if the Rune of Death has anything to do with the subverted symbol of Marika we see here. Understanding the Rune of Death is important also because it has a lot to do with the Godskins. Now, I'm at risk of going too far down a tangent that could be built on a false premise here, but if this is God's
that is always such a hard thing to do when you're theory crafting. Like, I don't make theories like Vaati does, but back when we used to do anime reactions regularly here on the channel, I'd love to make theories about any, like, show that I didn't really know about, so one of the pitfalls that I would usually fall into was believing that something I'd assumed was actually the truth. Sometimes you just gotta, like, take a step back and really reassess what is actually fact and not just you wanting it to be true.
Skin we see in the trailer, then it really could have huge implications for what's happening in this scene. So let's entertain the idea that this is Godskin just to see where this takes us. The leader of the Godskin nobles and the Godskin apostles was the Glowmide Queen, who, like Marika, was an Imperium, someone chosen by the Two Fingers as a candidate for godhood. And items describe how she was defeated long ago by Malekith, who was Marika's shadow, so essentially she was defeated by Marika. However, the exact nature of this clash is really unclear. We don't know if the Glowmide Queen and Marika were equals or rival Empyreans, or how or if control of the Elden Ring was split between them. But we do know that in the end, destined death was sealed, and the true power of the Glowmide Queen's black flame was lost.
Of course, it's another flame. Very heavy theme in Elden Ring as a whole.
Marika had won. So one kind of insane piece of speculation is that this body could actually be the Glowmide Queen's, given the Godskin and the rune and the war that Marika won against her in the beginning.
Assuming it is Godskin.
This theory about this being the Glowmide Queen is entirely built upon the premise that this lump is Godskin, and that premise might be false. Of all the characters we know in Elden Ring, I do think she's the most likely candidate, but to be honest, I actually think it's more likely that
be a new
this is a character or a thing we've never seen before. It's a sort of tempting impulse with Elden Ring lore to try to explain the story based on what we know, but the truth is that FromSoft are going to introduce a ton of new characters and concepts and names that we've never even heard of before in the DLC.
I wonder how it's like in the writing department. Like, did we originally have this DLC planned? Probably, I'm guessing. Like, any of you guys who know based off the interviews, well, Miyazaki probably answered this, but I'm assuming they did, and they intentionally withheld certain pieces of information to then introduce it to us. Or maybe it comes from some of the cut content from the original game, where they decided that it would be better to reveal that information in the DLC instead. A lot of potential situations here, a lot of opportunities that FromSoft could take and bring us something completely different from the Elden Ring that we know.
And those are the things that will shape our new understanding of the game. Thus, keep in mind, it's just as likely this could be some old god we've never heard of that Marika took runes or the Elden Ring from. And speaking of claiming the Elden Ring, the soundtrack you can actually hear in this scene is the Elden Beast's soundtrack. The Elden Ring became the Elden Beast, and it's something that we face as we attempt to claim the ring, so maybe that's kind of what Marika's doing here as well. The Elden Beast's theme here sounds really distorted, as if it's cutting out. I wonder why that is.
Mikula the Kind spoke of the beginning. The seduction and the betrayal.
Seduction and betrayal is certainly par for the course for Marika, who has a history of such things.
Well,
Renala,
for Marika,
in particular, comes to mind. She is a champion who was seduced by Radagon, who is also Marika. Their marriage with Renala settled a war that Marika couldn't win, after which Renala was abandoned by Radagon Marika and left broken.
Or Renala.
Marika wins again. So I wonder if this seduction and betrayal that the trailer mentions could have been applied to the Glow-Eyed Queen or some other rivals in the past as well. The next line does call it an affair. The wording makes it sound so scandalous.
An affair from which gold arose.
So, could Marika have used Radagon to play that seductive trick twice? For that to be true, Radagon would need to have been one with Marika since the beginning. And actually, Marika's torso is a bit more masculine here than expected. Better evidence though here is the hair. If you look closely, you can see a strong reddish tint to Marika's hair, particularly.
Maybe it's the lighting? It's kind of hard to tell, but I mean, I can see that. I feel like, yeah, we are like stepping into far speculation territory here though. Although given Marika's track record, it's not too far off from probably what she would do.
Particularly at the back here. But to be honest, I think it's more likely that the trailer is talking about Marika's seductions and betrayals in a more general sense. The Erd Tree and the Golden Order are inherently very seductive concepts after all. It was advertised as an age of endless bounty and endless life, but that was a lie, and the truth is surely...
Marika out here speaking like all politicians, man. Promise you one thing, and once they get into office, it never happens.
More sinister, clearly. So where is this place? On the border of two worlds, apparently, filled with corpses and viscera. It's almost as if this mountain of corpses is making up some sort of gate. From our perspective, you can see a golden sky within and a gloam-colored sky without, and presumably the reverse would be true if you were to look in from the other side. At first, I thought this dark world might be the land of shadow, and that light world might be the heavens or something like that, and that the lands between could be named the lands between.
Literally between them?
Maybe it grew out of the border of these two places. Is that even possible? Alternatively, this could be the land of shadow, and the lands between could be the golden world beyond.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Could be.
So here comes the next crazy theory. What if this towering structure is the Erd Tree in its primordial form?
What?
It would make sense for the Erd Tree to have been grown on some border between worlds. It appears in both worlds, after all, golden in one and shadow in the other. The biggest piece of evidence for this idea is that the primordial form of the Erd tree is also known as the Crucible, where primordial life was blended together. We know that the Crucible is what became the Erd tree's vital energies. Now, we've never seen the physical form of this Crucible, but we do have a few hints as to what it might look like. The first comes from the Gilded Great Shield, which states that the red tinge in the gold coat mirrors the primordial matter that became the Erd tree. There's also a great sword of a Crucible Knight that has a red tint that exemplifies the nature of...
My god. Yeah, we're gonna have to make so many leaps and bounds in logic with this little to go off of for what the Crucible actually is. I mean, all I know is that it was kind of there since the beginning, and it makes people grow horns sometimes. But also thinking about it, that kind of imagery of building your kingdom upon a pile of corpses has been used quite a fair bit. I mean, we could also reference back to that one particular manga panel in Berserk, where you see Griffith standing on a mountain of corpses. And that has kind of just been used over and over in media. I don't know if that was like the original one that people reference, and maybe Berserk was also referencing something, but I could kind of see it in that kind of light. That America's Golden Order obviously had to be built on blood, sweat, tears, and literal bodies.
Primordial gold, said to be close in nature to life itself. Lastly, red, mushy root resin shows up at the Erd tree's own roots.
A similar color, yeah.
This towering structure does feature a very red blending of life, what with all the viscera here. So could the Crucible literally be a blending of lives that gave rise to the Erd tree? In the end here, all we really know...
I mean, at the very least it would be good fertilizer, I think. I don't know, I don't exactly have a green thumb, but maybe that's why the Erd tree grew so big and strong.
Know for sure right now is what the trailer literally tells us. And it's that this affair, this beginning, gave rise to gold and shadow, and that a war would follow sometime after.
What followed was a war unseen. One that could
so
never
freaking
be
epic,
built to
man.
song. A purge without grace or honor. The tyranny of Mesmer's flame.
This part of the trailer is a little bit easier to explain. Here we see Mesmer's forces marching within this castle that we saw disintegrating in the previous gameplay trailer. It's a bloodbath here, and it looks like Mesmer's forces experienced very little in the way of resistance. Perhaps the residents of this place weren't expecting or prepared for a purge at all. Mesmer stands over the battlefield, directing snakes of red-black flame below. If you need to learn more about who Mesmer is, then I recommend you check out our previous news video, which speculates more deeply on his character. But suffice to say, he is a character that is considered to be on equal footing to the other demigods and children of Marika. That's the official quote. And he's almost certainly a child of Marika, given his dialogue in the previous trailer.
Yeah.
Mother, wouldst thou truly lordship sanction in one so bereft of light?
In this new trailer, we see him
Referring to
purging
America.
this part of the Land of Shadow, at least, in an act of what they're calling tyranny, presumably on behalf of his mother, who wanted no songs sung about this land or war. Earlier, we speculated that Mesmer might have been specifically a child of Marika and Radigan's union, considering his red hair.
The red hair, yeah.
While I still think that's likely to be true, I don't think we speculated on when Mesmer would have likely been born. So let's do that now. As far as we know, Radigan only made his first public appearance in the Liurnian Wars, and only had children with Renala, and then again with Marika after he abandoned Renala. However, I'm not sure it makes sense for Mesmer to have been born that late in the timeline, since it seems likely the purge took place much earlier in the timeline, at a point that followed the beginning. So what if Messmer was born outside of wedlock, so to speak? What if Marika Radigan conceived Messmer on their own ages ago? In this early age, Marika might not yet have had Godfrey to fight her wars for her, but it seems she did have
before
Messmer.
Godfrey.
In this context, it might have been a brilliant political play to use Messmer to usurp the Land of Shadow in his tyranny and then essentially lock him away in this veiled land to...
This is kind of like a Hades sort of situation, I think. Well, in the aspect of like, oh yeah, you kind of get the job that sucks, but you know, it's an important job, so you go down there, then you take care of all the souls. Also be the fall guy for us, because there's something that we need to do a little bit of purging here and there. But yeah, let's just have all of that kind of stain your name, so that our golden order can be prim and proper and perfect. Maybe we're going down that route, that literally Messmer's only reason for existence was to be the fall guy, but there's certainly, definitely something more to it than that.
To rule. Maybe this solved quite a few problems all at once, especially considering how blasphemous Messmer would have been to Marika's rule in the Lands Between. Though again, this is just speculation. As expected, the Wicker Men march on Messmer's side, and will have to fight one, as seen here in the gameplay trailer. A recent tweet states, "The sordid sins of war still walk the realm of shadows, even as their victims search fruitlessly for recompense." The brunt of Messmer's army consists of extremely well-disciplined masked soldiers wielding spears, led perhaps by these knights in black and gold trim. They look a lot like this knight fought in the gameplay trailer. In the next scene, we see the Lion Dancer smashing aside
we did
two
see
of
in the
Messmer's
gameplay
soldiers before it confronts Messmer himself. In the shot to follow, we see the flame he's conjuring in response to this assault, followed by 3 large, impaled bodies. As you might already know, the Lion Dancer is actually made up of 3 bodies. And so the implication here is that these are the 3 bodies with long cloaks that were puppeteering the Lion Dancer in the previous...
I didn't know that they were made of 3 bodies, but somebody did inform me in the comment section. And I mean, yeah, that makes sense, because like real lion dancers are multiple people puppeting the same lion. It's a very interesting way of fighting, that's for sure. But this place did have its own culture and civilization and I guess ways of fighting, as we can evidently see here, which maybe also ties into like the new weapons that we're going to be getting, and the new weapon types, I should say.
Scene before Messmer killed and impaled them. Now's a good time to note that many on the receiving end of Messmer's purge have what look like omen horns. The creature on the stairs has them too, and its robes look a lot like the ones worn by these enemies in the previous trailer, who also have horns. As discussed at length in previous videos, those with omen horns can be linked to the primordial.
Is it possible that they were like remnants left who worshipped the Crucible, and in order to establish the Golden Order, we had to remove all of them and their culture and their people and literally burn everything in flames? And Messmer having the whole snake thing and being kind of a blight, I suppose, on Marika's Golden Order, was kind of tasked with finishing them off, burning everything to the ground in order to lay the groundwork for the tree.
Crucible and the Crucible talismans make it clear that horns and other such aspects were once considered signifiers of the divine. It seems this was a culture and an idea that Marika wanted to stamp out, since she probably had new ideas about what should be considered heavenly. This is probably why the almost genetic reappearance of omen horns during her era was seen as a bad omen, to her at least. Maybe these horns were an element of the truth, hidden beneath the surface, coming back to haunt her. The only one without horns that we see on the receiving end of Messmer's flame is seen here, a feminine figure who seems to be holding some sort of undulating blade. Is this a spiral weapon, like so many others in Elden Ring, or is it maybe a sort of banner? Anyway, she's the last in this video's long list of atrocities for now. Next, let's talk about Mikola, who seems intent on bringing the truth to light.
To achieve what?
And so kindly Mikola would abandon everything. His golden flesh, his blinding strength,
abandon the Golden Order,
even his fate,
and probably the alter ego.
But we
probably.
are not deterred. We choose to follow. Will you walk with us?
Oh man, it's so epic.
One
I don't
question
even know
I'm
what's going
curious
on.
about the answer to in the DLC is, how did Mikola become aware of what happened in the beginning with Marika? My answer for now is that Mikola is quite like Marika in a couple of ways. For one, he's considered to be an Empyrean, with the wisdom, the allure of a god. Maybe he's...
I mean, also the charming aspect as well, but hopefully without the betraying part. Maybe.
quite capable of thinking like one. Another similarity is that Mikola literally tried to grow his own bird tree, watering it with his own blood, since it was a sapling. What if this gave him an insight into how such trees were supposed to grow? And if we're right about this being the crucible, perhaps Mikola realized the sheer amount of blood that would have been required for the Erd tree that already exists. So out of everyone, Mikola could probably figure it out. A few items actually consider Mikola to be a genius, and he's called a prodigy, so his ability to puzzle out the truths of this universe make good sense. In the face of these truths, he abandoned everything, and these sacrifices clearly have a purpose. We don't understand that purpose just yet, but take these scenes for instance. These markings left behind are in the shape of a great rune, something that Mikola would have had, and surely these are Mikola's own great runes that he's leaving behind, presumably for us. At first I thought that you might be able to rest at these like sites of grace, but in a recent promotional image it's been revealed that grace still exists in the Land of Shadow. The previous trailer says that Mikola is awaiting his promised lord.
I guess it's like a reason for you to go to certain areas to search out and seek them. Maybe kind of like in Breath of the Wild where you had to go around searching for memories if you wanted the like true ending.
Likely us, though. It's possible his followers each believe that it's them, as they're clearly following this hallowed land that Mikola has left believes it's them as well. And here they are, a veritable band of the Hawk, presented with this uplifting surge of music in the trailer. Mikola's faithful, compelled to follow him. Surely all these great NPCs aren't going to suffer horrific, terrible deaths. Right? We've already seen 4 of these NPCs in the previous trailer. There's the knight, this warrior, this tanky guy, and the masked one. Previously, the masked one was actually seen sleeping in what we suspected was a swamp of Saint Trina. And since then, we've received confirmation from Miyazaki that Saint Trina will indeed make an appearance in the DLC. And sure enough, here they are now in the trailer. Saint Trina.
I was like a little bit hesitant, I think, when I was initially reacting to this. I'm pretty sure it was Saint Trina, but like maybe I was missing something. No, the colors, the suggestions, it's Mikola's part of the trailer. Yeah.
Presented in the context of things that Mikola has abandoned.
His golden flesh, his blinding strength, even his fate.
His fate.
Considering Saint Trina is falling in this scene, holding their arm up to the light, at first glance I assumed that this is the fate that Mikola was leaving behind.
Interesting. Also, very Kingdom Heartsy of you. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a very popular kind of shot to have your character falling through the water and reaching up to the surface, but I don't know like where it originally came from. It just makes me think of the Kingdom Hearts.
Abandoning his alter ego. On second thought, though, we know that Miquella is abandoning his golden self, so perhaps it's more likely that Saint Trina will be all that's left. But since they're making an appearance, I assume that we'll get to the bottom of things. All of this is a lot of speculation, I know. I feel like the closer we get to the truth, the more questions are raised. But hopefully, if nothing else, I think this was an opportunity to refresh our memory of a few things that we should look out for going into the DLC.
Awesome.
But what about
Super
after
excited,
the
man.
DLC? Well, I've found one other game that I'm interested in playing when it releases.
Here you go. Apologies for cutting out the sponsored section, but I just remember that last time I left that in the video, I actually had to cut it out later on because I got copyrighted for the music from that sponsored section, so yeah. I feel like Vaati had a lot of good theories here, but ultimately, most of it is based off of speculation because we are shown a ton of things out of context and we can link them to certain things that we already know. But as Vaati already stated, like, it could be something completely different. A new thing that's introduced, a new concept that we have to learn about. So yeah, I'm excited to see where the story of this DLC will lead us. I don't even play the game. But I'm very excited for you guys who are eagerly awaiting the DLC drop and have already defeated Mohg and Radahn. But yeah, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.